All right, again, please show some love to our amazing speakers for our first session, and of course to you guys in the chat and for joining us this morning. Hope you felt inspired by that. So again, show some love in the chat before we get ready for our next session. Some more folks. And again, we talked about evaluations, and so if you are unfortunately not able to join us for the rest of our sessions today, please feel free to do this evaluation. You can wait until you attend all the sessions later today. And of course, QR code for the information about the conference. And I also just put it in the chat. So, and again, you can wait till you attend all the sessions to fill out this evaluation, but I will also be sending out an email to you guys. So we are going to get ready to get started for our next session. With the wonderful Stevon Edwards. And so I'm going to let them give you guys a few minutes to go get another snack, a drink, use the restroom, and of course, telling folks who's not on this call right now, tell them to hop onto the call right now that they're missing out. So I'm going to pass the mic on over to her.
Okay, hello everyone. Let me know in the chat if you can see my screen. Am I sharing? Great, perfect. So while we transition to the next presentation, I want you to take some time and I want you to find a piece of art around you that is related to food justice or climate change. You can take time to walk around your house. You can pull something out of a drawer. You can take a picture or even show us via video, but everybody find something around you right now that is some art related to climate justice or food justice, climate change or food justice. And so we're going to take a few minutes and let folks come back from the bathroom, from stretching, from making a phone call before we get started. Okay, as we gather back together, there's some art that is on the screen. If you know any of these pieces, please type in the chat. Please type in the chat if you know the artist or the title or even where it is. Please type it in the chat if any of these pieces are familiar to you that you see on the screen. Yes, Faith Ringwald, top right, and she became an ancestor recently. And that piece is titled For the Women's House, 1971. Thank you, Heather. Anyone else want to take a guess with any of the other pieces? Jacob Lawrence. Yes, Ruth. Absolutely. That's Jacob Lawrence's piece, Struggle from the History of the American People from 1955. Anyone else want to take a guess at the other two pieces? Okay, the third photo there is by Latoya Ruby Frazier, Flint is Family. So that is between 2016, 2017, from pictures of folks that are impacted. Of course, we know Flint still does not have clean water. So that is a picture from that gallery there. And then, of course, the one at the bottom, who knows what that used to be? It is not there anymore. You might have to zoom in. But that is the former Robert E. Lee statue. So it was decorated, of course, with Breonna Taylor's image, and various other pieces in memorial of her. And it was removed in 2021 and replaced with the Emancipation and Freedom Monument. So thank you all for participating. So my name is Stevon Edwards, and I have my own consulting business called Chenault Solutions that provides capacity building consulting for nonprofits and businesses. But today I am here to represent OKIKE. OKIKE is where Black artists get paid. And this is the brainchild of Chantrice Martin, who several of you probably already know, whose artist name is Chata Noir. And she founded OKIKE because her mother actually was doing art and getting paid for art after she would work several long shifts. And she saw that, there was value in training up artists in a way to make money from their art, a way to have their art be their living. And so that is what OKIKE works on each and every day. And so OKIKE works to train and then also connect artists with different fellowships, grants, workshops, all of these pieces that folks need in order to really and truly develop their art, the business part of their art practice, and also the creativity piece as well. And so in order to get tapped into that, it's Black artists get paid everywhere. So on all platforms, whether it's social media, the website, Black artists get paid. And we are excited to be able to talk about the synergy between climate change, food justice, and of course art, because Chantrice started the Black-owned grocery store that is still located in the West End. And so she has very, very deep connections to how all of those pieces work together. And hello to all my people in the chat. I see you saying hello. So it's good to see you today. So today we're going to explore the role that food systems play in contributing to climate change, explore using creativity as a powerful tool for advocacy and change, and then discuss how art is a transformative force in the fight against climate change. So I want you to pull out your art piece that you found during the short break that we had, and I would like for 3 people to unmute and get off video. Is that possible, Jamika? I don't want to go against the rules. You know what I'm saying?
I would just ask for you guys to do the raise the hand feature, and then you can just we can then know who's going to do it, since we have a large number of people in the room.
So 3 people, please raise your hand and share what your piece is. Show us what your piece is. We're going to do a little bit of show and tell, and then tell us how it relates to climate change and or food justice. And so, Jamika, I'm looking through the list. If you could look through as well, if you see any hands raised. I don't know if they pop up to the top of the list for us if their hands are raised.
Oh, looks like we have, Sashella, go ahead and share. All right.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm not at home. I'm at the Women's Center. So I was like, what could I possibly find? And then I remembered I was wearing some art that I had recently. I had to find resistance, in solidarity. We know what's going on. We can't turn our backs. They deserve food. They are humans. All of the things. So that's
good.
my art.
Thank you. Yes. Absolutely. We also had Ruth. Ruth's hand was raised as well.
I'm also, I don't know if you, oops, can you see me?
Yes, we can see a background of beautiful flowers. in clouds.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. I'm sorry.
There you
Okay,
are.
we go. I'm also at work, but I have a water bottle from the Fungi Foundation, and it's the first global foundation protecting fungi. And it's the first time in 130 years that a mushroom was featured on the National Geographic this month, if you have National Geographic. But anyway, I'm a big mushroom person. Everybody that knows me knows that I am. So I wanted to make sure because it's very much tied into all of the environment. It makes plants grow and feeds us, makes our medicine and all that stuff.
Thank you so much, Ruth.
Mhm.
Was there a third hand? Ashley Howard. Ashley Howard. If you want to share, please do.
Okay, let's see. Can you see
Yes, we can see
my
you.
background? So that is a wooden atlas of the whole world. And what you can tell is that it is different levels. So my son and I put this together, and I think it just really represents that every region of the world is facing its own problems and its own disparities and its own different climates. So the forests in the regions of the world that are closest to the ocean are flat against the wall. The other ones are raised. And I think that the way the pieces fit together are kind of how people are going to have to work together and fit together in order to sort of bring climate change and food and resources all together.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, all three of you all. That is amazing examples of how art, of course, relates to those issues that we are discussing today. And of course, we know the purpose of art and advocacy is to raise awareness and then promote action, right? Now, I want to get into some level setting. So what does food justice mean? I want some folks to raise their hands, go off mute. You don't have to show video, but what does food justice mean? Or you can type in the chat. I'm gonna be watching the chat as well.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I think food justice means like access to different groceries in your neighborhood and, amongst various different demographics in a city, just access to food and healthy food as well.
Thank you, Megan. Polly?
Yes, I'm here. I would say that food justice represents communities that are in red line districts that don't have the opportunity to healthy food or grocery stores. I think that bringing healthy like food and nutrition to red line districts is my definition of food justice.
Thank you, Polly. Was there another hand raised? I didn't see it, but we have some really great chat messages. Access to food that is culturally relevant, meets your health goals, and is affordable. Access for everybody to nutritious food, having equal access to healthy food options, equal access to nutritional needs without contaminants, healthy food, community gardens, affordable options, sustainable access to nutritionally dense foods, and teaching how to reconnect with growing food. Everyone deserves access to a variety of affordable, healthy foods to support themselves and their families. Thank you all for contributing all of those definitions, and you all are correct. Everybody is correct because we also know that justice means different things to different people. To some people, I just want a store. I just need a store. To other folks, it's I want a store that has healthy food. For other folks, it's I want a store that has healthy food free of contaminants. For other folks, I want a store that has healthy food free of contaminants that I can afford, right? And so it varies. But of course, we all know that meeting the needs of all equitably means all of those needs get met, okay? So how does our current food system contribute to climate change? You could type in the chat, or you can raise your hand and then go, and I'll call on you and go off mute. How does our current food system contribute to climate change? And, food system is thinking about the way we grow food, the way we purchase food, distribution of food, securing food, water. Polly.
Yeah, I would say that in this situation, we have a lot of food waste, and so we overproduce foods that we don't necessarily need. And whenever you travel and go to other countries, you see that the foods that they sell at their stores are in season, and so we are selling and growing things that are not necessarily in season. Because that's what it's like a consumer-based thing. It's supply demand. So we're just overproducing things that aren't necessarily necessary, and then we waste it because then you're not eating all of the food that we make.
Overproduction and waste. Thank you, Polly. We have in the chat from Janice lots of resources used for little yield, especially with the production of meat. Sashella, monocropping, toxic chemicals, taking of land. That's right. Megan wrote Breonna Taylor. Megan, will you come off mute and go a little bit more in depth with your response? If you can't, that's fine. Because we also have Ruth, marketing by big, unhealthy fast food places. We have Patricia, overconsumption of meats and dairy. Derivatives has a very negative impact on the health of our planet. We have Ashley's hand raised. Ashley, you want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from a long line of farmers, and I will tell you that just distribution of land and rotating crops and taking care of our environment to ensure that we're able to continue growing food is going to be a huge challenge, I guess, going forward, to make sure that we don't overuse the land, pull out the nutrients from it, and then that in turn causes your water cycle to be disrupted, and everything then becomes a problem, and nowhere can grow what they once could grow. And maybe they can grow something else, but who's to say that they know how? Because people are accustomed to doing what they know.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking at the third question, so it's flipped. The third question is flipped around. How does climate change impact food security? How does climate change impact food security? Weather changes affect production of food. Thank you, Janice. It can take it away or grow it. Thank you, Ashley. Environmental disasters displace people and impact access to food. Right. Thank you, Shashella. Anyone else want to chime in on that third question? So you all have really covered all of the examples that I had set and ready to talk about. So extreme weather events, climate change is leading an increase in the frequency and intensity of weather events such as hurricanes, droughts, floods, heat waves. Yes, with hotter days and longer winters, some foods may permanently be able to no longer grow due to the strict temperature changes. Thank you, Destiny. These events destroy crops, infrastructure, disrupt the change. And we know that Black and Brown communities, particularly those in low income and urban areas and vulnerable rural regions, so even people in vulnerable rural regions are exposed to climate risks. And it contributes to that historical pattern of environmental justice, right? Because where we live has also been shaped by structural racism, all the isms. So where people are placed today goes back to the origins of 100 years. So, a big example of that is Hurricane Katrina, where Only certain wards in New Orleans experienced the worst of it. People were displaced. They are still to this day coming back. And that requires infrastructure development. It requires funding. It requires true skills in order to bring back a civilization or community to where it can survive. So shifts in agricultural patterns. So we talked about that a little bit with monocropping and with toxic chemicals and those changes in how food is grown, how food is harvested. There are several Black and brown farmers who rely on small scale agriculture. And we also know that at the federal level, Black and brown farmers are excluded from the benefits of farming that larger scale and often non-Black and brown farmers receive. There's legislation, there's all types of things that impact the food system, which then impacts climate justice. Which impacts climate change. So when it comes to temperature changes, all of that leads to food insecurity and economic hardship, crop yield decline. It is said that according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, global crop yields are projected to decline by 2% per decade due to climate change. And of course, that means greater food insecurity across the globe. We have loss of livelihoods that happens because of climate change. If folks have a couple of bad years, they're out, right? That's a business decision because farming itself is a risky business. Food production itself is a risky business. And so if you have a couple of bad years, you're out. So that's why we also had a decline in our agrarian agriculture, our agrarian culture, and also agrarian businesses over the last 50 years. So then the biggest thing, how much is a gallon of milk where you are? How much is a dozen eggs? Too high. I'm not even naming prices. Entirely too high. So that food insecurity and that climate change, right, expensive, it contributes to food price volatility. So if there's a greater demand and a low supply, we know that turns out into a $5 dozen of eggs. Right. Thank you, Marion. Too high. So the World Bank estimates that a 1 degree Celsius increase in global mean temperature leads to a 7% increase in the price of wheat. So that's your bread products. And we know we love bread. I love bread. We know we love bread. 6% increase in the price of corn and a 3% increase in the price of rice. And we know that these carbs are staples in our kitchens. So because of climate change, because of food systems impacting climate change, there's disruptions to food production, supply chains, distributions, all of those pieces. And so we also know that Black and brown communities experience those disproportionate impacts as well. So what does this have to do with art, right? We have all these facts. We know what is going on with climate change. We know what we see at the store. What does this have to do with art, and how can art impact the work that activists are doing each and every day in order to mitigate the consequences of climate change and the impacts of our food system? So OKIKE means creativeness. So it is an Igbo word, and it means to create from that which comes from within you. Okay, that is what OKIKE means. And so that creativeness can preserve knowledge and also promote sustainable practice. And so it was mentioned earlier today, I don't know if it was this session or earlier, that sustainability is a huge piece of impacting climate change and then also shifting the food system to have less impact on the climate. And so historically, storytelling, and these are just examples, storytelling, weaving, basket making, and pottery have been deeply rooted in traditional practices that were functional, but also carried significant cultural and environmental knowledge from one generation to another. Okay, so storytelling is learning. We learn from storytelling. So storytelling that provided valuable lessons on how you care for the earth, what a tree means, what each animal's purpose serves. Exactly, Ruth, like a griot. Those are very important. That's a very important form of art that has been passing down knowledge across generations. So by sharing myths, legends, and oral histories that contain lessons about the relationships between humans, nature, and food. For example, the Navajo people of the southwestern United States had stories about the importance of respecting the land and using resources sustainably throughout generations. This is not what you do in October. This is something that you do in July. It is because the animals move from one place to another, and we have to respect that their land is our land and our land is theirs. The weaving and basket making have been traditional crafts that have been used for gathering, storing, and transporting food sustainably, because you're using the earth to cultivate the earth and also benefit from the earth. So that craftsmanship has a deep ecological knowledge and ecological practice. So through the process of basket making and weaving, you're passing knowledge about sustainable harvesting of cedar trees, the importance of maintaining healthy forest ecosystems, and the techniques for weaving intricate designs that reflect the interconnectedness of all living things. Pottery is another traditional art form that carries that valuable knowledge about food systems and environmental stewardship. So pottery is used to cook food, store food, carry food, move food. And these traditions, of course, they come from the earth because you're using clay. And it's clay sourced from specific locations, not just grabbing anything, right? Being very intentional, being very respectful about how we live on this earth. So these are not just artistic practices, storytelling, basket making, weaving, and pottery, but they have been a powerful means of transmitting knowledge about traditional food systems. And then also they have been practices that preserve cultural heritage, maintain ecological balance, and uphold those values for environmental sustainability. So now we look at taking action, which is what we use art for as far as in advocacy and lobbying and those types of pieces. When we have campaigns, when we really want to get a message out, when we want people to take action on a specific thing, we know that not all the time talking works, right? Some people are not auditory learners. Some people are visual learners. Some people like to interpret differently, right? We all think differently and we may interpret differently. So how do we get the message across? Well, of course, we know that art has played a crucial role in raising awareness, inspiring action, and catalyzing change. So these are 3 examples of how art has been used in these contexts. So visual campaigns and installations, we know about these. The picture on the left is the Climate Ribbon Project, which was initiated by artist Gan Golan and activist Kate McKenzie. And individuals would write messages expressing their feelings about climate change on colorful ribbons, which were then woven into large-scale installations displayed at climate-related events and public spaces worldwide. So it's an interactive artwork that served as a powerful symbol of collective concern and solidarity, mobilizing communities to demand climate action from policymakers and decision makers. We also have cultural representations and narratives. So artistic expressions, including literature, film, music, and theater, have been instrumental in shaping cultural narratives around climate change and food systems. So who has seen Food Inc., the documentary Food Inc., or An Inconvenient Truth? You can raise your hand. I'm not going to call on you, but you can raise your hand and let me know, or you can type a heart in the chat if you have seen those 2 pieces. And so those have brought attention to the environmental and social impacts of industrial, agricultural, and climate change. Similarly, literary works like Barbara Kingsolver's Animal Vegetable Miracle, and then also The Wind-Up Girl, explore the intersection of food, culture, and climate change. Of course, community engagement and empowerment, huge pieces of advocacy, action, and organizing. So art-based initiatives like community gardens, urban farming projects, participatory workshops, etc. They focus on climate change and making food systems change at the grassroots level. Thank you for sharing, Ruth. Braiding Sweetgrass is a book as well. Thank you very much. So the picture at the bottom of this slide is called Greening the Ghetto, and it is a project led by artist and activist Majora Carter, who transformed vacant lots in the South Bronx into vibrant green spaces, providing opportunities for urban agriculture, environmental education, and community gathering. So the projects not only mitigate the impacts of climate change by shifting what that space is used for, right? So it's no longer asphalt that creates a central heat space, but it's now been turned into something functional. But it creates cultural pride as well within marginalized communities that are disproportionately affected by climate change, and then also food systems and food justice. And then, of course, I had to throw in here Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. And I'm also going to share with you all at the end a link to for 25 different Black authors that actually talk about climate change and food justice as well. Thank you for sharing that link, Ruth, to Braiding Sweetgrass. So I want to hear from you all. What are some other ways that OKIKE, we know OKIKE means creativity, could be used to promote food justice and climate action in your community? And I just want you to popcorn out, throw it in the chat, raise your hand of other examples that you know of how creativity has been used or could be used to promote food justice and climate action in your community. Are any of you working on any types of projects, advocacy projects that include art in your actions? Ruth, I see your hand is raised. Nope, not raised anymore. Thank you. So Jabadi has put a link in the chat for activists working to remake the food system from the New York Times that we can check out. Jabadi, do you want to talk about that a little bit, please?
Sure. And this is while I'm put some food in my mouth, because hopefully you all are taking care of yourself. And while we're talking about food too, food justice, connected to our earth and connected to the arts. On there you have Karen Washington, who is based in the Bronx. I used to be a part of Farm School NYC, so was in the food justice scene in New York City. And so they are doing a lot of work, and that comes from their ancestors from the South, from the work that they're doing, co-creating together, and really breaking down. So the educational piece is very important, and connecting it back to arts, how the arts, and I always call it the Trojan horse, that really shift cultural understanding, that we can make it really exclusive. But a lot of people in remaking how we think, and this is the work I just love from Stevon, is just breaking it down so we can all feel like we're a part of it. And art, whether through song, dance, visual arts, and all these interdisciplinary forms, is a magical way to do the thing. And OKIKE represents that. So the squad in New York City is doing the same thing, and the squad in Detroit, LA, Oakland, Seattle, all in Florida. So many people are doing this work. So I just in deep appreciation of this session right now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bennett. Anyone else want to share anything that they know of or what's going on?
Yeah, sure. So currently I am volunteering for the Passionist Earth and Spirit Center here at Louisville. And I have a lot of respect for what they're doing, because they have retreats for students, teaching not only teamwork and community within education, but also how to be a part of your environment. Like I went there on Tuesday, and I was with a couple of high school students, and we were, picking weeds. Not my necessarily favorite activity, but we ended up going around, and Olivia, which is one of the volunteer coordinators, she had us like picking up and like eating a bunch of basically grass, but it wasn't grass. It was herbs and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool. And just bringing like interest into the environment, I think is so important. And I think you can do that through art, and obviously educating younger generations about how they can be a part of the environment and how they play a role in what happens. So I think it's really cool what they're doing. And that's a small way to get involved in the community here at Louisville, because they have volunteer hours every Tuesday and Thursday from 3:30 to 5:30. And you can just walk in and go and volunteer and do your thing and leave and hang out. And it's really cool. So, yeah.
Thank you, Polly. We have Rachel that added that they run a summer camp for kids called Camp Odyssey that offers those same gardening and learning opportunities to identify and safely eat plants. So thank you for sharing. I want to hear from some more folks. We got 64 people on the call. What's going on in your region, your state? Shashella.
So I just want to take a quick second and bring some awareness to the Meals on Wheels programs. Not everybody has easy access to food. There are individuals who, for mobility reasons, mental health reasons, find themselves at home, and everybody deserves food regardless of your ability status. And I think it's just a huge shout out that there are people and organizations who recognize this and are very intentional in serving their communities, like Meals on Wheels. So just huge shout out to making sure that we are being mindful of the disparities in access.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that. Anyone else? You might have to hit mute, Gisela. Tammy, please share.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I don't have my laptop open. I get concerned in these conversations when we also don't talk about our relationships with animals in our environment. And even to the point of discussing veganism and things like that. I actually teach summer camps at Bellarmine for children to prevent dog bites. And that tends to be a real gateway to talking about environmental issues, especially with, 5 and 6 year olds. So I like to see when we have these discussions that we also talk about the brave women who are in the wildlife reserves, protecting them, the brave women who are rehabilitating animals like bonobos or even our local animals that get injured and things like that. So I just want to say that it's really important that we always consider the fact that we are not the only living beings who are going to be affected by climate change.
Thank you, Tammy, for bringing that up. We are not the only living beings who are affected by climate change. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, quickly before we log off, because I want to give you some time between now and the other session, we have a list here of taking action. So we have already started talking about this, and people have already shared ways to get involved in organizations to get involved with. And so taking action involves supporting your local food producers and farmers markets, reducing food waste at home, using creative expression to raise awareness about these issues. There's the link to 25 books by Black authors. I'll make sure that you all get a copy of this, so you'll be able to access these links in case you want to read these books that are related to environmental education. And then engaging with organizations working on food justice and climate change. Yes, OKIKE has social accounts, and I'll share those. Engaging with organizations working on food justice and climate change. So here locally, there's Food in Neighborhoods. Change Today, Change Tomorrow was mentioned. There's also Louisville Community Grocery, which is a co-op model that is working on opening a grocery. We have React, who you will hear from later, who is Ebony Cochran. Rubbertown Emergency Action. Of course, Hip Hop to Learning was mentioned in the previous section here, and they use music and visuals in order to advocate and be activists. Nationally, there's a national coalition called Coming Clean, which really works on environmental justice, and then Earth Justice as well. Earthjustice.org is another national organization that you can tap into. And so these organizations are highlighted because they are Black and Brown led organizations. They are led by the people, right? And they really do good work in order to shift how the food system is operating, how corporations are operating in relation to climate change, and they're fighting every day, right? I know it personally that they are fighting every day in order to shift and change what is happening within our community. So if you want to connect to OKIKE, it is Black Artists Get Paid across all platforms, whether it's the website, Instagram, Facebook. It's Black Artists Get Paid. Very simple. Okay. If you want to connect with OKIKE, also letting you all know that we do have a Black Future Fest coming up in August of this month in Louisville, Kentucky. The Black Future Fest is going to feature Black artists. It's going to feature Hip Hop to Learning is going to be in the space. Other folks will be in the space as well. And it'll just be a celebration of Black art, because what we're trying to do is work toward a Black artist district within Louisville, Kentucky, similar to some to those that you see in Detroit, those that you see in California, where we actually have a row of houses, right? Row houses where Black artists will be able to create and be able to create change. So thank you all so much. I did want to end with a poem. And this poem is by Justice Amir. This poem is by Justice Amir, and it's called "We All Gotta Eat." Even ants go to war. Been thinking about it all summer, what it means. I mean, how human, or maybe how ant. Maybe nature begets violence because we all gotta eat. Yo, I was on trains all weekend, and Lord got sick on an empty stomach. Acid tides creeping up my throat, but no, I didn't eat the train food. On the hill, in the college, we poured gallons of slop into buckets for the pig's feast. Gross chunks, all fresh waste, and unholy stew, and so much of it. They're looking at the port again. Southside stays loud, saying they don't want it. But you know, folks can't hear colored folks' voices, and well, garbage needs a place to go. Every member of my family has mentioned my belly to me this year, as if she doesn't wake up with me every morning, as if I don't gaze at her lovingly in the mirror, as if I should worry if she looks full. Call me callow, I just don't think something living should go hungry. Not when we've made so much to eat, with Armageddon's gas stove. On a table we've slaughtered the world to build. So I thought I would just end on that note and share that with you all. If you want a copy of that poem, I do have, I'll put that link in the chat as well. But thank you all so much for having me.
Again, show some love for this. Yes. And I want to just add this note that she is one of the Women's Center's community pros of Kentucky. So I always like to plug our community pearls whenever we can and bring them back. Yes, we recognized her during our 30th anniversary last year. So she was one of our first 30. So huge shout out for that. But any questions that you may have, and again, thank you all to everybody who shared resources. Please, please, please keep that energy out throughout the rest of the day in the breakouts. Of course, even right now, we all have a wealth of information, knowledge, and resources. And even if you are not one of these people presenting, you all have something to give and give back and share in resources. I mean, I've learned so much just from you guys as attendees. But any questions that you may have? So, go ahead and share my screen. That way I can share the next bit of information. So thank you. Yes, keep showing love in the chat. And again, QR code and everything else, links will be sent for the evaluation. So we especially with this being our first one, we want to get feedback from you guys. But breakout sessions won't start until 12:20. So you have a little bit more time to get a little bigger meal if you want, or even just to research, okay, where can I get some food that ain't gonna cost me an arm and a leg and a lung, but that's also gonna be good for our bodies. Yep, I will put in the chat the link to the breakout sessions. So here are their options. And again, at 12:20 is when these will start. You got human trafficking and gender equity in the Latinx community, and that is going to be hosted by the amazing La Casita Center. We have community power and menstrual equity work with Period Y'all, ecofeminism and eco-socialism. And again, I always love shouting out our students. We have a University of Louisville student who's also a U of L sustainability intern facilitating this. We have reproductive justice and environmental justice, a short primer. And this is being hosted by Sister Song. And then disability and gender-based violence, a closer look. And again, shouting out to all of our students. They are a current U of L student and a disability advocate. So I'm putting in the chat the links that will take you directly to those rooms. And again, it won't be starting until 12:20, so you have 20 minutes to do so. But you can also, on our website, there's links to these, and in the email that was sent out to those who registered before I sent out the email this morning at 8 a.m. So the rest of the time of yours, and again, please share your experience with us, evaluation, conference information. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys return back here for our closing session. But go on and have the rest of your time and then hop on to the breakouts. Thank you. And I will stay on here if you have any questions as well until we break out.